afternoon. I'm Shawnee Au, and this is One News Now. Maynilad will implement yet another round of water service interruptions due to leak repairs, much to the dismay of some of its customers. Shaila Francisco has that report.
Water supply in parts of Barangay San Martin de Porres in Parañaque City had just stabilized last June 4 following a 2-week water service interruption. But Carinderia owner Gina had to fill up her containers yet again. Maynilad will implement another round of water service interruption for leak repair and maintenance activities.
Sana hindi na mauulit. Maya't maya kailangan mo yung tubig kapag habang nagluluto ka.
For about 8 to 12 hours, parts of Makati, Parañaque and Pasay will have no water supply, while some 166,000 residents from Quezon City and Valenzuela will experience a 28-hour water interruption starting June 8. Some of them couldn't help but complain.
Malaking perwisyo sa amin po dito yan, ay sobra naman ang tagal. Kasi wala rin kaming drum. Kagaya sa amin, maliit yung bahay namin, walang espasyo.
Maynilad explained maintenance activities would take longer than usual in Quezon City and Valenzuela due to bigger pipes in the areas. The agency said it also aims to prevent further water interruption in the coming months.
Kailangan din po namin kasi ito gawin. Pagka mas lumala po yung kondisyon ng leak na yan, baka po mas malaki pong trabaho ang kakailanganan sa pag-repair, and mas hahaba po yung pag-i-interrupt ng operation ng pump station niya.
Maynilad vowed to send 34 mobile water tankers to affected customers. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
The Health Department has welcomed China's emergency use approval of Sinovac's vaccine for children and adolescents. However, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III noted that the Philippines will be sticking with its current vaccine priority list. Duque said that the DOH will consider Sinovac's jab for the younger population once we have enough vaccine supply. China has allowed the use of CoronaVac on people between ages 3 and 17. Preliminary results from clinical trials showed that the China-made shot is effective for the age group, and most adverse reactions were mild. And the National Task Force Against COVID-19 has reported that close to 6 million COVID-19 shots have already been administered nationwide. Of that total number, 4.4 million have received one dose, while only over 1.5 million people have been fully vaccinated. The government was able to inoculate an average of 112,000 people per day in the last week. Authorities are urging eligible populations to get vaccinated and to complete the required number of doses. We're going to pause for a quick break, but we will be back with more stories after that. Stay tuned. On One News Now, I'm Sean Yao. The COVID-19 burden is slowly shifting from Metro Manila to other regions in the country. For one, Mindanao has accounted for 1/4 of the average daily cases in the country in the last week. Jem Avencenia gives us the details.
Over the past week, average daily COVID-19 cases in the country climbed to 6,000. 25% of these infections were recorded in Mindanao alone. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said this represents a shift in the COVID-19 burden among provinces.
Na-outpace na po ng Mindanao ang National Capital Region kung saan ang Mindanao contributes to about 25% of the cases right now. So nakikita ho natin, nagsishift po yung mga burden of cases sa ibang lugar. At from Mindanao, we are also seeing rise in cases in some parts of the Visayas region, also in some parts of the northern Luzon.
The agency said a multitude of factors may have led to the recent surge in Mindanao.
A multitude of factors kung bakit po tumataas ang mga kaso. And number one, of course, there would be mobility of the population. Pangalawa, yung compliance po natin sa health protocols. Pangatlo, yun pong response po ng ating gobyerno, both national and local. Baka meron ho tayo nakikita mga deficiencies in detection, isolation, and treatment. And the last, and I think it's very important, yun pong epekto ng variants.
Aside from rising cases, the death toll in Mindanao and other regions outside Metro Manila is also starting to climb.
Yun pong ating cases and even deaths, nag-shift po siya. Makikita ho natin na bagamat dito sa National Capital Region, meron pa rin hong mga naitatalang namamatay because of COVID-19, but we are seeing a rise in the number of deaths in other regions of the country as well.
Because of the worsening situation, the stricter Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ has been re-implemented in Davao City. COVID-19 ICUs are filled to the brim with patients. For one, the occupancy rate at the Philippines Medical Center has reached 98%. The facility now needs more nurses and doctors to attend to the growing number of patients.
In general, understaffed pa rin kami. In fact, sumulat ako kay Secretary Galvez, kasi nagpadala siya dati ng 25 nurses and doctors to augment our staffing. Nagsulat din ako sa Bureau of Fire dito sa Davao. Sana mabalik din nila ang yung 10 ka-nurses.
Motorists in the city have to bear with long queues as stricter checkpoints have been set up. Some establishments are also under lockdown due to high COVID-19 transmission among workers. Though some businessmen are against the move to place Davao City under MECQ, they are left with no other choice.
Wala kaming magawa nito, ma'am, kasi talagang dapat susunod kami sa gobyerno. Kasi kapag hindi kami sumunod, sasara naman yung business namin. Luging-lugi po. Ang hirap. Sobrang hirap.
In April, COVID-19 cases decreased by almost 40% in Davao City. However, by mid-May, cases started to slowly increase anew. Just this weekend, Davao City recorded over 2,300 active cases. For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
And here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. Davao City's numbers is expected to outpace Quezon City's in the most number of new COVID-19 cases. Based on the latest report by the Octo Research Group, Davao City will likely surpass QC's daily fresh infections this week. Davao City's growth rate increased to 54% with 206 average new cases, while Quezon City still has the highest average fresh infections at 219 as of Monday. The Energy Regulatory Commission has directed generation companies to submit a detailed report on the rotational blackouts experienced in parts of Luzon last week. In a statement, the ERC said that they have identified generation plants that need to undergo technical inspections in relation to the sudden blackouts. The regulator has also formed a task force that will conduct a study on the recent power plant outages. And the Vice President has expressed support for the LGBTQ+ community in celebration of Pride Month. The official thanked the community for providing voice to the oppressed and the marginalized. Robredo also raised concerns over the challenges being faced by the LGBTQ+ community, such as discrimination and lack of access to healthcare and employment. Facebook critic and Techonomy Media founder David Kirkpatrick says he is impressed by the social media's decision to continue to ban former U.S. President Donald Trump for at least 2 more years. This said move is a full 180 for Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. Let's watch this.
You know, you might be surprised to hear me saying this because I've been very critical of Facebook in recent years, but I think they kind of went just to the right place in this instance. The proof will be in the pudding as to how they actually implement what they said they're doing today. But I was very impressed that they seem to have taken some very rational steps. It wasn't just extending the ban on Trump. It was really implementing a whole new set of guidelines for how they treat politicians and how they treat the notion of newsworthiness when it comes to politicians globally. And they made some big changes.
So let's talk a little bit about the reaction. Of course, there's the reaction from Trump himself saying Facebook's decision is an insult to the record-setting 75 million people, plus many others who voted for us. They shouldn't be allowed to get away with this censoring and silencing and ultimately will win. Our country can't take this abuse anymore. To be clear, it was just over 74 million votes. And then you have Facebook itself saying almost that it doesn't want to have this power, David. You know, a lengthy statement from Facebook, this coming from Nick Clegg, him saying, we think that giving private companies the power as a commercial entity to sort of permanently banish someone from significant parts of online discourse is a very significant step. And at the end, American democracy doesn't belong to Silicon Valley. It belongs to the American people. It's legislators and politicians of this country who, in the end, have to govern the rules that prevail. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Facebook's right in theory. If government could really come up with a rational set of rules of the road for digital speed, it would be great. I'm skeptical that that would be easy to do, particularly in our current political environment. And the reality is everyone needs to remember that commercial companies have the right to do whatever they want with their product. They don't have any obligations to host anything because somebody, even if it's the president or ex-president, wants them to. So Facebook is completely within their rights to do absolutely anything that they want. Now, I think separately, there has been a very serious question about the way they implemented that control over recent years. I think they have frankly capitulated to many politicians, including President Trump while he was in office, and in many other countries around the world in similar instances. So what I'm especially impressed by is that in responding to their oversight board, which is what they did today, they basically took almost every one of the oversight board's recommendations and made a serious attempt to implement them to come up with a more standardized, transparent, and fair set of guidelines for how they treat political speech by public figures. Zuckerberg said in 2019 he believed politicians should be able to do anything on Facebook. So this is a 180 for him. I think Nick Clegg was the player that really led to all of these changes, and that by his idea of setting up this oversight board and doing it very effectively, and then I'm sure he's the one that convinced Zuckerberg to basically accept their recommendations. I don't think Zuckerberg wanted to do this. I think he's probably very nervous about the implications it's going to have in many countries, not just the United States, if they really do have to come down harder on political leaders. But he has changed. He has very much changed.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.